Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for a-plus.com, and in this tutorial we are going to create a cool Valentine's Day greeting card, video greeting card or something like that. So let's take a look at the video first and then start creating it. Okay, let's jump into Cinema 4D to create the 3D heart, and it's pretty easy. I already imported a 3D shape out of a Illustrator file right here. It's pretty basic, so I'm going to hold down Alt and just click and put the spline shape into extrude NURBS object, and as you can see it's pretty thin right now, so I'm going to increase this to 200 to make it a bit thicker, and I'm going to come to the caps tab and put a fillet cap onto the start and the end of the object and increase this to 40 maybe, and 40 here, and as you can see it expands and grows the shape and makes it bigger. So I'm going to click constrain right here to fix that, and I'm going to set the steps to 30 or maybe 15 to smooth the edge and make it look like so. And as you can see, this is our 3D heart, so I'm going to put a camera into the composition and just zero the rotation of the camera like so to center the heart. Come to the render settings and render this in 800 by 800 resolution, 30 frames per second, and we choose all frames for the rendering. Also, let's see where are we going, but before that let's create a quick shader for the heart. Just double click and on the color channel change the color to red like so. Also click reflection and set this to 25, and let's apply the material to the heart, and if we render it, it looks like so. But I'm going to add some cool reflections, and let's open the content browser of the Cinema 4D, and I'm going to use the Grayscale Gorilla HDR Studio kit and just put the HDR Studio rig in my scene and come to the studios and use this one, 3 Softboxes Studio 1, and just put it right here and minimize this panel, and come to the properties of the HDR Studio rig and uncheck scene by camera. This way we are not going to see the lights in our scene. So let's come to extrude NURB object, come to coordinates, and we are going to animate a rotation. So let's increase the duration of our scene to probably 150 frames. Come to the first frame and let's see, set a keyframe, hold down Control and click on this circle here to set a keyframe, and as you can see it becomes red. This indicates that we just put a keyframe here, and come to the end and just set this to 360 and set another keyframe, and if we play this we can see our animation already happening. And probably I'm going to increase the reflection of my shader. So let's create a very quick preview. You can see the progress of the preview right here in this bar, and as you can see, it renders it pretty fast. And this is our preview. But I noticed something that I don't like, and it is that as you can see, the pivot point of our object is on the one side of the heart, and I want it right in the center. So I'm going to click this mode so I can move only the pivot and move it -100 on the z-axis, and this way my heart rotates like I wish. And I'm going to zoom out a bit the camera, and this is it. We are ready to render our 3D heart. So going to come to the render settings and just come to the anti-aliasing tab and set it to best. 1:1 and 4:4 should do the job for the reflections to avoid some nasty results in the reflections. So we just need to go to the output settings and choose a format, for in this case PNG sequence with alpha channel, and this is it. Now we need only to choose the output path for the render and just click Shift R and the render will start. But I'm going to skip this part because I already have the 3D render. So I'm going to save this project file to put it in the tutorial project files and jump into After Effects to continue compositing and building the rest of the greeting card. So let's jump in right inside After Effects. Here we are in After Effects, and let's put the 3D render right inside the composition and just trim it. So this is our 3D render, and probably we need to move it right here like so, and just pre-compose it, and let's call it hard 3D, and then create another, actually a new solid, and let's call it BG for background, and apply a generate ramp effect. And for the start core, let's change this to this core right here, and for the end core, let's change it to this core, and we are going to animate the cores. So let's put a keyframe for start and end core and move few frames forward and just change the cores to something different. So, and hit OK, and now if we select the layer and hit U, we have an animation, or shift. And for the 3D heart, I'm just going to open it and just duplicate it, make the bottom one 3D layer, and just rotate it like so and move it down to simulate kind of a shadow. And for this effect we are going to come to effect, generate fill, and make it black, and apply blur and sharpen fast blur, and probably increase this to 100, and set the opacity to 75%, and this way we have a kind of a realistic shadow effect. And let's get back into the main composition. We need to create a new solid and call it OF for optical flares, and put it behind the 3D heart, and actually cut this one from here and paste it right here. And come to effect, view cop out optical flares, and we are going to clear all and come to the lens object and just build a quick flare which we are going to put behind our 3D heart. Hit F4 and change the blending mode to screen, or add is better. And let's see, move it right here, and let's alt click on animation evolution and type time multiplied by 100. In this way we get this nice animation, but probably we need to decrease this to 30 to get a smoother animation. And let's create another solid, particles. Let's call it particles, and we are going to use trap code particular. Come to the emitter, change it to box, reduce the number of particles to 10, and increase the size of the emitter. Come to the particle and set the life to 6 seconds or 8. Remove the feather and increase the size, like 85 for example. Set the opacity over wife to this preset and set the size random to 70% for example, and reduce the size to 65, and change the blending mode to add and set the opacity to 15 or 8. We want the really shadow effect, and we need to come to the emission extras and set the pre-run to 100. This way the particles are already emitted when they appear on the screen, and set the number of particles to 5 and set the velocity to 50% to get a slower movement. And now we need to pre-compose the particles, and we are going to set the opacity to 100% and change the blending mode to normal. Let's pre-compose this and call it particles. Set the opacity to 8% and the blending mode to add. Come to effect, transition, and we are going to use this type of transition to make it like so. and just use a simple mask to and feather it a bit to cut the particles so they appear only on the top part and middle of the screen and disappear in the bottom, and probably set the opacity to 5%. So we have our heart and particles, and we need to create a new adjustment layer and create a circular mask in the center. Come to effect, color correction levels, and set it to 100 for the input white, so we brighten the center of our background. And now we need to create another solid and call it form. Come to effect and apply trap code form plugin, and just duplicate the 3D heart, put it into another composition, and let's call it form map. And let's apply a generate fill effect and make it white. And after that we are going to apply a simple choker to extend the size of the heart. So we are going to set it to -100 and duplicate it 3 times. And after that we are going to come to effect, blur and sharpen, apply a fast blur and blur it 150 pixels, set the repeat edge pixels, create a solid and call it matte, and we are going to use a rectangle mask to cut the bottom part of the heart and set it to 150 or 200 for the feather, and probably move it a bit to the top. Like so. And let's see, we need to drop this composition right here and turn it off. Come to the form, saw it, and come to the base form and set the size to the dimensions of the composition, which are Full HD, and set the particles in Z to 1, and of course set this to the number of particles to the size of the composition. After that, come to particle and set the size to 0.8 for example, and set the opacity to 30%. And let's come to layer maps, core and alpha, and we are going to use the form map and use the alpha and map it over X and Y. In this way our particles appear right here. Come to the fractal field tab and set the displays to 100%, and we get this nice effect. Set the flow Y to -50 so it moves upwards, and let's change the F scale to 8 so we get a less complex shape. And we need to apply a CC vector blur, but before that come to quick maps, open the core map, and we are going to use this map right here to create, I don't know, something interesting maybe. and let's close the form and come to effect, blur and sharpen CC vector blur, and set the amount to 5 so it smooths the particles a bit. Unsole this, change the blending mode to add, and put it behind our 3D heart, and probably set this to 2 and open the form and increase the opacity to 60%. So we get this nice kind of a energy feel around our heart. And for the core, probably just leave it like so, and increase the blur a bit, and come to the form map and move it a bit like so, and come to the main to see the change. Yep, that looks good to me. And I'm going to create, actually duplicate this adjustment layer, put it right here, and move the mask here, and probably increase its size like so, and create another layer, OF2, for optical flares, and just apply video copilot optical flares. Come to the options, clear all, and we can apply simple glow, so we can simulate kind of a white effect. Set the scale to 300%, move it right here, change the transfer mode to add, and this way we simulate white coming from this side. And probably we need to flip our 3D heart inside this composition, so it's like it reflects the white from this here, and create another solid and call it vignette. Apply a circular mask, change the screen, the mode of the mask to subtract, and set this to 300 or 400, and set the opacity to 30%, so we get a nice vignette around the corners. And another thing that we can do is to create another solid and call it screen dirt, and come to effect, video copilot optical flares, and open the options, clear all, and select the global parameters here, and come to the lens texture, and we can use probably this. Come to the illumination radius and set this to 500, hit OK, and change the blending mode to add, and it's terrible right now, and we are going to double click on the mask and subtract it, and set the feather to 300, probably set the brightness to 50% or 30, and maybe increase the feather to 400 and set this to 55 or 40. You need to tweak the settings, but you got the idea. It's like we have a bit of dirt on the lens, and this 3D heart is nice, but it's too sharp and perfect, so we need to come here and apply some filters to it. First, let's start with color correction and just desaturate it a bit. After that, apply curves and increase the contrast a bit. Probably add some blue in the shadows. After that, we go to stylize and apply mosaic effect, and the resolution of the heart is 800 by 800. So if we set these numbers right here, it's perfect, but we are going to set this to 600 by 600 just to degrade the quality of the 3D render. And as you can see, it starts to look a bit more natural. And apply a quick fast blur and set this to 0.5 to smooth it even more. It starts to look better right now, and I think this is it for the heart. Probably we can increase the scale of this and actually set this to 500 and apply levels adjustment and just crush the blacks a bit so we don't get too much white on the screen. We want only on this part here to have white, and probably blur it to avoid this kind of a bending effect, or you can increase the bits per channel on your project. Let's set this to 400 and let's see how it's going to look like. It's good. So let's take this main composition, put it into another composition, and we are going to type our text. Just use the text tool, and we are going to use the Vivaldi font, and let's type Happy Valentine's Day. And just position it right here, and come to the layer styles and apply a gradient overlay. And let's see, for the top we want a bright pinkish color, and oops, for the bottom we want a darker pink color, and it starts to blend with the background, but we are going to apply a perspective drop shadow, which doesn't work because we used the layer styles. So we need to apply a drop shadow from the layer styles menu. As you can see, it's working now. Set the distance to 3 or 2. Set the opacity to 70 to 100%, and probably we need to change the colors for the gradient overlay to something like so. I think it looks better, and we need to animate this, so I'm going to open and choose some properties to animate on the text. I want to animate the scale, and I want to add to this a opacity and blur. Set the scale to something like 500%, set the opacity to 0, and set the blur to 250%. Come to the range selector, click on the offset, set this to -100, move 2 seconds forward and set this to 100. And I'm doing that because I'm going to open the advanced tab and change a ramp up preset maybe. Let's see. And I'm going to open the more options tab and actually choose a line, or let's see if word works. I guess this is not what I'm looking for. Let's see. Yep, I think I'm looking for this kind of effect, and probably scale it and blur it even more, and just easy is the final keyframe, so we get this nice and smooth animation. And after that we are going to duplicate this layer, and let's see, we are going to offset the animation and type, of course, make it shorter, and type love, and increase the size to 200% maybe. Move it here, and finally put the 8 plus logo. Just decrease the size of the logo a bit. 50% or 40. Set this to 100, and just easy is again. Apply quick fast blur. Set the blurriness to 0 here and to 100 here. So we have this animation. Let's see how everything blends together. We need to apply a drop shadow on this logo. Oops. Like so. And 200 is a bit much, and that's basically is. We can cut the optical flares from here and paste it here, so we have the white affecting the text and everything in the composition. And we can create another solid, call it again optical flares, and apply a quick flare. Oops, it's really big pain to work on such a small resolution like this, 720p. We can use this flare to put it probably here, and let's see, we can animate it from here. Set the brightness to 0 and have it at 100% here. Probably scale it down a bit. And this is something that I don't have in the original example, but you can experiment and add a few things more and create adjustment layer and just apply a final color correction, probably increase the contrast a bit, and come to noise and grain and apply add grain effect, change it to final output and set the intensity to 0.1 and the size to 0.2 probably, and we have this really subtle kind of set the intensity to 0.2 as well. As you can see, we have this nice sort of fume grain kind of effect, which blends everything together, and I guess this is it. You can change the timing of the animation, you can change the colors, and you can use this technique for creating various different greeting cards or stuff like that. It's pretty simple and clean looking, but this is the design I wanted to create. I wanted something really simple and stylish. So of course it has some mistakes. For example, you can increase the font size of this title to a bigger, like so, move it a bit to the side probably, play with the settings, but basically that's the main look I was going for. So with this I finished this tutorial. Hope this is interesting and useful for you. Once again, I'm Stefan for 8touchplus.com and we'll see you next time.